Hi there, and welcome to the ATS podcast with me, Will Brown, and John Soulsby. And this week we are once again joined by our special guest, Dr. Zoe Black, who is our resident sports psychologist that we liaise with, talking to and getting advice about mental health issues and various things with how to optimize our systems and how we relate to our clients. Um, we, as usual, are going to break down chunks of health and fitness information into bite-sized pieces, remove a bunch of the noise, and hopefully just leave what's relevant. Um, on today's episode, we are going to be asking Zoe about her top tips for competition and performance anxiety. What do we reckon, Zoe?
So frustrating there. Yeah, it's a good question. Again, not the most straightforward answer. The most important thing is, first of all, to have an understanding of what anxiety is, and to remember that it is a normal human experience that we all go through at moments in our life. Um, how can we use anxiety, or how can we not allow it to affect our performance in an unhelpful way? First we've got to do is notice when we're anxious or what that looks like for us. It is quite an individual thing, I find, in terms of how clients present with anxiety, whether it's, your heart racing, shaking. I do a lot of nervous laughter when I'm anxious. For some people, it's that, physically feeling like they're going to be sick. Be noticing, okay, what you feel when you're anxious, how you present,
hmm
and how does it affect what you're thinking. Um, and so we talk about behavioral kind of hot cross bun. You've got your thoughts, feelings, your behaviors, and your physiology, and those things all being connected. Feeling anxious, what's going on in those other components?
Right. Just to circle back, why is it a hot cross bun?
The way they draw the diagram, it's like a circle with a cross on it. So those four
Oh,
things are
right.
joined up. Sorry.
Okay. No, no, that's just my no, poor imagination. I was like, I've missed a bit. Like, where was the hot cross bun? I'm also clearly hungry because I'm very distracted. I'm like, yeah, super interesting, but what about the food?
Yeah, and I mean, my favourite hot cross buns at the moment are those chocolate ones that Marks and Spencer's are doing. They are delicious. That's the one I'm allowing.
Oofed.
So yeah, you've got your kind of thoughts at the top of the hot cross bun, if you'd like. You're
hmm
on one side, the physiological effect, what's going on inside our bodies, and then like our behaviors. And these four things are all connected and all relate to each other. So it's kind of, you've got the arrows going around the side and the arrows joining them together across the middle is what I believe it's called a hot cross bun. Yeah, on our mind body connection. So when we're nervous, I often give the example of, I might be feeling anxious about being in a room with, this is again a ridiculous example, being in a room with bananas, because I think my thought is that bananas are poisonous, and that poisonous banana is going to harm me. Physiologically, when I'm anxious and I'm nervous about these bananas, my heart rate's going to increase. I get a bit sweaty, a bit shaky. In terms of behaviours, I'm going to avoid that room with those bananas because I don't want to be poisoned.
Big Peter Andre's
Yeah.
listening and actually reliving his anxieties. That man is
I mean,
scared of bananas.
I mean, you joke, but I've literally had two clients that can't visually see bananas because they hate them so much.
Yeah, it's weird. We've got
Um,
quite a few banana phobes.
that was a really good example of something that nobody would experience, but here I am wrong. Anxiety for everyone.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's wrong. It's just very strange. I mean, it's very bad pub trivia, but Peter Andre did almost die of potassium poisoning from bananas, which is why it's just in my head. Oh
There
yeah.
you go.
I mean, if you eat 15 in a day, like
I'll do it.
that'll do it.
Excessive. Excessive. So we've got this kind of connection going on. We're aware of it and what's happening when we're anxious. The story you always hear in psychology is, our brain doesn't know the difference between being anxious about a banana poisoning us as to if there was a saber-toothed tiger in the time when we were all cavemen. So it still activates that same fight, flight, freeze, what tongue twister, response part of our brain, which you might have, and is basically our brain is then getting our body to run away. We're getting ready to run away from this thing that is threatening, be or a saber-toothed tiger, and that is why we see the increase in our heart rate. We see the blood beginning to pump to our legs to help us run away. Our body's getting ready. It's actually, again, this is a bit much technical jargon, activates our sympathetic nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
which gets us ready to do that. Rising nicely. So my top tip, I've been rhyming this off everywhere recently, for reducing, I'm going to say, anxiety or nerves, to tune into our breathing and to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. And how we basically do that is through long exhales. So the story I always use is, when you watch a movie or a cartoon and you see the person hyperventilating and they're breathing into a bag and they're almost gulping for air.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, because they're breathing in so much, when we inhale, we activate our sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight, flight, freeze. It's getting our body ready to run away. When we breathe out and exhale, that's us activating our parasympathetic nervous system, which basically tells our body to kind of rest and digest, is what they call it. So if we're breathing in loads and not breathing out, we're just activating that fight, flight, freeze response and making ourselves really anxious, hence the hyperventilating. You can have longer exhales, so breathing in for 2, out for 4. We're allowed and digest process to win the battle, so to speak, and encourage our body to rest.
Hmm. So
I
would
don't know
there?
what
No, this is incredibly informative. Just a question would be: is there? I assume, like a lot of things, the devil's in the details, and it will be a bit about kind of balancing that out. Because I assume you don't want to. You also wouldn't want to try and be like ready for a nap when you're meant to be in competition or like a high level performance. Like
that.
uh, like I, as much as we mainly deal with powerlifters in terms of a competitive sense, and American football players as well, but again, if someone in American football was kind of lining up for the opening kickoff and like stifling a yawn, I'd be equally concerned as somebody who is so jittery they can't stop moving for any length of time, or had mainly gone around the back of the bleachers to be sick with nerves. Like neither of those are desirable right now.
And that's why I think you so often notice, I do a lot of work in swimming, and one of the things that you see when you see them, or again with kind of kickers and those closed skills, is just before they kind of begin to make their movement, that last kind of long exhale that almost looks like a sigh, that kind of, and it's just that, let's just calm that last kind of excess of adrenaline, and just rest that wee bit in that last moment. So yeah, it's almost like that is to be kind of the best tool to have in your toolbox to reduce anxiety, is try and change the thoughts. We can change the behavior, and we can try and reframe anxiousness as excitement. We can actually change the physiological component. That's going to have a much greater impact on all those other factors than telling ourselves, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited, but you've still got that feeling in your gut of, I'm going to throw up. So the physiological component, we know that's going to impact the rest quicker. So yeah, finding that balance between, as you say, and being so and like adrenaline pumping is important. And again, then I'm sure you probably have some lifters who want to be super aroused, that kind of really hyped up performance. Well,
Yeah.
that's where they perform at their optimum.
Mm-hmm. and then you have Joy. Um, oh, what's her name, Salisbury? I forgot. I've totally.
Namani.
Namani, that's it. Yeah, she's I think she's won worlds in the IPF. She's horrifically strong, and she just sits backstage reading a book and eating a lollipop. Like, could not look like she gives less of a shit. And then just goes out and yeah, deadlifts like 220 at 57 kilos or something. Just ridiculous.
She's almost mislift before because the page in her book's too good. You're like, this
Yeah, like in a
Yes.
war.
Um,
There are definitely people who prefer the kind of heightened state of excitement that the can all the sports psychologists have a meeting and just change the word from arousal, because like it's really there should be a better word. Um,
when you're trying to tell football players about it, doesn't
oh yeah, exactly. Like trying to get the room of lads to listen to a serious discussion about pre-competition arousal is just like it's never gonna go well.
I
Um,
agree. I agree.
the
Examples perfectly define the importance of the individual context and encouraging them to um, autonomy again over it and understanding of it. And I know that sometimes some of the athletes I've worked with like to be that kind of super excited, over aroused, but actually they don't perform at their best when state. So it's we almost have in numbers and be like, okay, well, when you're super excited and you're really pumped up, actually, this is okay, you know, the times you're going, or this is what you're lifting. Whereas versus when you're slightly calmer, this is the performance we're getting out of you. And
mm,
sometimes people just don't actually have that awareness or understanding, and it's spelling that out for them and encouraging them to play around with how excited they are before they perform can be important.
yeah, the I quite often see it when I think there's a fairly unique dynamic in powerlifting where if you are coaching somebody on the day, you're typically the person who's going to pick their attempts, so they get 9 attempts, 3 of each lift. A lot of people will hype up whoever they're handling, but genuinely, most people are almost too hype on their own nerves anyway. Like the kind of competition setting, the crowd, like the culmination of all the work, like all of that nervousness kind of hypes them up enough. Like I don't think that mostly or a large amount of people don't need any extra hype. They're like way too highly strung as it is. Um, but it's also that you need to, because you're the person running the numbers, you need to actually keep a kind of cool head yourself, which it can get really is really hard. You can get like carried away and just get into the hype, but you need to remain objective and pick numbers that are actually there, which is quite difficult. Like it's never fun to have someone be really stoked about making a lift and they want to add 10 kilos onto it and you're like, like let's maybe go 5. I don't think 10's there. Like they never look at you pleasantly if you tell them that. But
And so you've got to manage almost their, I'm going to say the word arousal levels, but also your own.
oh yeah, 100%. Like you have to do both and they pretty much can't be the same. I don't think if you're both going to do your jobs well, which is
Very
a
dynamic.
oh, it's kind of funky. Sorry, Soulsby, go on.
No, I was gonna ask you. It's like talking of like kind of how different people have different arousal levels when they're wanting to train or perform. How do you kind of go about in a like training room environment? You potentially have like 2 or 3 different groups of people. Like you might have someone who loves the tunes like super loud, super hyped up, and then you might have someone like Joy we mentioned who just likes to be in a quiet room reading a book, and then just every now and again like, do you have any tips on like how you could manage that, or is it just try and create separate groups so that they train at a different time?
It's a good question. I'm thinking in some of the sports I work in, we have that challenge often, and it's almost about just encouraging. Well, I found encouraging those two individuals to be considerate of each other. Of okay, I know that this is what you need and you like, but 100% of the time you're in the gym? Could we have that for when it's really important you're doing that, that main lift or that challenging set, whatever it might be, and could we be a little bit more considerate of others in sport? Athletes are quite selfish, and quite often they'll do what they need to do to get the results that they need, and it is just about managing and encouraging them to understand each other. And whilst you might work in this way, not everyone works in this way. And I've done that recently in one sport is actually we removed were encouraged athletes to try different warm-up routines. So those that typically warmed up one way, we asked them to warm up the opposite way, and vice versa. It kind of gave them a bit of an empathy and understanding of the other person. And then obviously we let them go back to what worked for them, but it was a way to let's play around with this, let's experiment, let's see how heavy you can lift, with no music in silence. What's that like for you? Just into the other person's shoes, and they'll probably step back into what works for them, but let's be considerate of what it's like when enjoying or not comfortable in the environment. I have no idea again if that answered your question or not, but it's
absolutely great. Yeah, I think that was pretty bang on.
Dope.
Gym with no music.
Well, we do traditionally, mainly with our powerlifters, like to not have an over-reliance on music and outside influences, mainly because on competition day, it can go literally anywhere. So there's nothing worse than if you're really reliant on music and you're walking out into the platform and a song comes on that you hate, and therefore your performance stinks.
You can also find a bit of a reduced effect if you do it over and over again. It's kind of like if you're eating your favorite food all the time, it slowly becomes not your favorite.
Unless it's pizza.
Yeah, it would need a long while before I got sick of pizza, but yeah.
Yeah.
So just to summarize, what would be your top 3 tips for reducing competition anxiety?
Taking time to understand how nerves, anxiety, what it looks like for you, and how it affects your performance.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledging and accepting that you feel anxious. We're not going to eradicate that feeling from your life forever. It's going to come up. And then number 3 would be using that breathing, so longer exhales. Breathing in for 2, out for 4, in for 4, out for 6. Exhales to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and kind of calm your body is what I think to be the best strategy.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Zoe.